So our son's through.
Cool. So Amy, why don't I kind of turn the floor over to you? I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what your background is and how you came into SubTo.
Yeah, happy to. So, my name is Amy English. I live in Austin, Texas. I started off as a small business owner back when I was 21. I didn't know it at the time, but I did my first business acquisition and bought an after school pickup program. And during that time, I was building my business and my mentor, I was looking for another place to rent. And my mentor said, why don't you buy a house and rent out the rooms and not pay a mortgage? And I kind of looked at him. I was like, people do that. They'll live in my house and pay my mortgage. And he says, yeah. So I started off in the real estate world with house hacking back in 2016, and I converted to co-living, and it's all traditional stuff. So I started very traditional route, saved the money, and kind of grew from there. I have two co-living houses, and then went and transitioned over to new construction back in 2020. So I've done about four new construction homes in Bastrop, Texas, and then moved over to developing glamping sites. So the great thing about that is I've been able to partner with really great people and scale in a traditional way. So I know that side, but how I got into SubTo is being a business owner. And I mean, you know this, Adam, when you're a business owner, it's so hard to get a loan. And when that happens, you then have to figure out, okay, how do I jump through these fire hoops and this red tape to get this next investment property? So I was thinking there's got to be a different way. And I knew about seller financing. I knew about SubTo, didn't know anyone doing it. And, there's a lot of people probably like me in the sense where I just learned better working with people. And so I was looking for a community that could help me, that can teach me a little bit. And that's how I started. I started back in October of last year. I have 10 acres under contract out in Terra Lingua, Texas, which is where Big Bend is. That's going to be a seller financing deal. And we're closing May. And we're going to do yurts on that. So that's my first deal I'll close on here next month, and hoping to do more. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, and you just joined SubTo not long after I did, right? Like, what was it, February?
Yeah, no, I joined October last year. So
October of last year.
yeah, I'm someone that kind of likes to step my foot in the water and kind of look around. I feel like you're either the person that slowly goes in, or you're the person that jumps in. I'm definitely not the jumper.
So you're smarter than me because I'm a jumper.
Hey, you know what? I feel like being a jumper can be a good thing too, though, right? Because then you learn your mistakes so much quicker. You just go through it. You're like, oh, I roll with the punches. I learned that mistake. That hurt. That sucked. Let's move on. Whereas I'm like, I'm gonna watch Adam and say, so how did that feel? Tell me about it. So,
That's that's exactly it, guys. I'm a bad influence. We did one of my friends got married in 2016 in Vegas, and I convinced the bride, the groom, and like one or two other people from the wedding party to go do the stratosphere jump. And of course, they're all like scared. I'm convinced one of them still had to get nudged in order to make the jump. And meanwhile, the bride told me that like I just kind of launched myself like a flying squirrel. I was just like, screw it, dude. Like if I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna actually like jump. Like y'all are just trying to step off and fall.
you wanted it to be intentional.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
fall, I jumped.
yeah, exactly. I didn't fall. I didn't step into this. I didn't dip a toe. Like I jumped.
Yep. Full commitment. I think
Yeah,
that's what's
but
great about this
that's
community too, because I think, someone like me, I need kind of that encouragement of Amy, it's going to be okay. And I need kind of those people, those jumpers in my life. And, jumpers also need the people that say, whoa, let's slow down a little bit, right? We balance each other out.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do JVs with you, because you and I had that counterbalance where I'm like, all right, go, go, go. Like, let's get this done fast. And
Mhm.
you're like, wait, hold on there. I have one more question here.
Yep, that's one thing you can always count on with me is I ask a lot of questions.
Sometimes to your own fault. You're like, wait a minute, does this look right?
Yep, I've asked myself lots of questions too.
Like your
I
pitch deck on that land development.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory there, guys, is I'm working on this cool land development deal in Kyle. I'm helping raise 6 million for, and I was doing a pitch deck and I was absolutely overthinking it, and I kept looking at it and sending it to Adam, and I was like, "What is it? How does it look?" And he's like, "It looks great." And then I come back a couple days later, "Hey, I made a new one. Can you look at it again? It looks great." And like I think it was like a week later, I was like, "Hey, I made it better."
Yeah, and it gets to a certain point where I'm like, motherfucker, just go.
Just send it, just put it out there. Yeah, I'm always afraid that it's not good enough. I always want to make it better and better.
Just
But
pick it up and run.
yeah, so that's a go again back to where I move a little slower. I want it to be in tip-top shape so people feel comfortable with me, where maybe that's not always necessary. So
But what I don't think a lot of people realize is that's still a superpower, right? Like that's part of what makes you a good capital raiser, is being able to vet not only the borrowers but the deals before you even bring it to a lender.
oh yeah, for sure. I think what happens with that is it makes people trust that I really was thoughtful with what I said. And, one of my core values is integrity and honesty. And I think that's another thing too, is I always want to make sure, am I presenting this in the most transparent way possible while helping people understand? It definitely can make me overthink on things a little too much, where, they get that analysis paralysis going on. But I think I'm learning that it can be a superpower, like you said, as long as I'm able to flourish it instead of, there's two sides to every coin, right? There's the good side and there's maybe the negative side. If I'm able to focus on the positive section and not let it become, I guess, sometimes like maybe a little bit of anxiety, instead of going from that angle and see it as more of, no, I'm taking precautions. I'm looking at risk mitigation, stuff like that.
Well, I feel like the caveat there is you do in fact still have to hit the send button, right? Like you can mitigate all the risk in the world, you can do all of the precautionary measures, you can have the highest standards and the biggest requirements, but at the end of the day, you still have to take some level of imperfect action and hit send and say, ship it.
Yep. And I definitely did that this week. There's a couple times I had to cover my eyes and just press the button. It's I definitely did that. And luckily, one skill that I think is a really good skill that everyone, just anyone can take, is if you do have a mistake, is taking responsibility for it and saying, "Oh, thank you for catching that. Let me find a way to resolve this," and not making excuses for it. So I would say that's one thing that definitely helps me, is that, hey, if I do make a mistake, I'm going to trust that this person will bring it back to me and point it out if that's the case. And I can absolutely take responsibility and see how I can not only rectify this, but also show that, hey, I'm here to be as honest and transparent and helpful as possible. And I'm not going to point any fingers. So the problem can actually be solved, because if no one takes responsibility, the problem doesn't get solved.
Yeah, it comes back to taking extreme ownership of the situation and actually accepting that responsibility, whatever your responsibility in the deal is, right? Like we said, if you're the capital raiser, that means you're supposed to be that first line of due diligence, that you've checked the borrowers, you've checked the deal, you've made sure that everyone is kind of on the same page and they're all communicating through you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, trusting also that you listen to both parties. Do these people actually align, right? I think that sometimes people, I guess it depends on the deal, but sometimes people don't pay attention to the buy box, or don't pay attention to what the lender or the PMP wants. And so that's one thing that's great, is you're able to have that responsibility and say, hey, I'm maybe an extra safety net to make sure, things can go wrong, right, that are out of everybody's control, but at least you know that if you have someone that's focused on taking that responsibility, you can trust them a little bit more when mistakes are happening, that it's going to be taken care of, and that you listened and you paid attention to the needs of everybody.
Yeah, and one thing I think not a lot of people take seriously is the level of responsibility that comes with asking people to land on a deal, right? Because not everyone like has just millions and millions of dollars sitting around in cash. Like some of these people are taking this money out through lines of credit. Some of them are taking it out through their retirement, which is functionally like spending cash, right? If it disappears, it just disappears. Like not
Mm-hmm.
everything is covered the same way like it would be in a HELOC or an IUL, which still have, really negative repercussions if that deal goes sideways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I think it ultimately comes to kind of like we were talking about earlier, like you just got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there's so much that goes into vetting those deals to make sure that you're shouldering that burden. So I guess how did you deal with that? Because I know you've been getting these big crazy deals lately, like a $6 million land development. That's kind of scary.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I try to do is when I look at a deal like that is, first, I don't, if there's a deal I don't understand, that's one thing. Is if I'm going to raise money on something, I need to understand the deal. And luckily, I have that background. I worked for a land development company last year, and I understand that side, right? And I felt, and when I looked at this deal, I personally got excited for it. I even invested money into it as well because I liked the deal so much. And I think navigating, and I think that's the thing too, is people need to be honest with themselves when they're raising capital for something, is do I really know what this is and what the risk is when I talk to people? And knowing your deals really well is important, because you also understand, well, when I talk to this person, maybe it fits their buy box, but maybe it doesn't fit their level of risk tolerance, right?
Or
Maybe
their
it
level
doesn't,
of communication, even.
right? Or maybe I know when these people connect, maybe they don't do business the same way, right? And I would say that's one thing that helps me a lot, is especially on something that's this complicated, is the developer on this, my connection, his name's John, and I asked him for everything. I said, give me everything. And then I played devil's advocate and I asked him these questions. What about this? What about that? What if this happens? How are you going to respond? And I gauged, speaking how development works, I gauged his answers, how quickly he's able to respond, if he was defensive or not, or if he was happy to answer those questions. And he was always like, oh, that's a great question, would get excited. And he would get excited about answering more questions in this deal, which made me believe, okay, that means he also wants to have a good relationship with people. He's going to have good communication if something is happening, or if he needs to talk to him. How easy is he to get a hold of? So I would say that that's something that helped me build confidence in that deal specifically, is just really knowing how the deal works. And then when I present it to people, I'm not going to present it to everybody, right? I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to send this to a fix and flipper. Doesn't fit their criteria. I'm not going to send it to someone who does long-term buy and holds. I'm going to send it to someone that has money that they want to deploy, that they understand the holding process. They understand how entitlements work, because anyone who understands entitlements knows that things can take a little bit longer. So they understand what they're getting into. So nothing is, I guess, surprising or confusing, I guess is the best. I don't know if that answered the question, but
No, I think so. Like I said, the main focus I wanted to come to is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I feel like you've also done that pretty well, kind of like I did. You started to jump in. You stepped in, right? You got your feet wet, and then you reached out to me, and you and I networked back in like what was that, February or March or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So several weeks ago. What about that? Was that uncomfortable for you, like networking with more people to try to, cause you came to me, you're like, hey, how do I monetize this whole connector thing?
Yeah, honestly, talking with people feels really comfortable. What does feel uncomfortable is I always question how can I bring value? And I think that's where I doubt myself a lot. And because I always think like I can do more or I could be better. And when I start talking to people, sometimes I get, that little bit of imposter syndrome of like, who am I to know if I can like move this? Who am I to like be able to raise money? And I have to remind myself, like, hey, like, first of all, go back to the core values. Like, I know ethics and honesty is a big core value to me. I know that I want what's best for this deal and for these people. Obviously, like I'm monetizing this skill, right? And I want to make money, but I also want to sleep at the end of the night and know that I helped people get a little further in their journey and that I did a good job for others. And I would say that's the thing that kind of helps me get through that discomfort of, is this where I'm supposed to be? Am I doing a good job? And I mean, sometimes I even call you and I say, hey, I need to just ask you this question. Like, is this okay? I kind of have you do a pep talk sometimes. So I think that's kind of part of the journey too. Anytime you're an entrepreneur, anytime you're trying something new, talking to new people, even switching in real estate, going from say single family to multifamily, there's gonna be a little fear because it goes back to I'm a beginner. What do I know? Why am I here? How do I know I can do this? But there's also a little excitement in that. I don't know if you feel that when you're doing something new, is there's fear and excitement. And I think if you lean into the excitement part a little bit more than the fear, you can get
Yeah,
past that fear.
if you redirect that nervous energy as just excitement,
Yeah.
because the truth is, like you said, you are still learning. You're doing the thing though. Like there's no doubt that you're doing the thing, but you're still learning. And sometimes it leaves you like laying in your bed staring at the ceiling, going like, dude, I don't even think I know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm just going forward.
Yeah. I had this picture on my phone for a while. It has this well drinking coffee and it says, just keep drinking coffee and pretend you know what you're doing. And to this day, honestly, the scariest thing I did was buy that company when I was 21. To this day, that was the scariest thing that I have ever done. And when I mean, I even said no multiple times. Like, I'm not doing this. And they're just like,
Mhm.
well, just look at the numbers, tell me what you think. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm 21. What do I know about running a business? And then I looked at the P&L sheet, and then all of a sudden my brain just started going, oh, I can do that. I can take away that expense. Oh, I can do this to increase revenue here. And then I caught myself in that moment. And I go, oh, you could actually do this. You could actually
Mhm.
figure it out. And it was terrifying. And it took a long time to feel confident in my ability, but I remind myself that's kind of where the magic is, right? If we're if we're comfortable all the time, we're also not satisfied.
I see that a lot in the small business world too, just in general, like that wonder of if you're providing value or not. And I feel like a lot of that's because we're so used to just getting kicked in the nuts in the market, right?
Hmm.
Like you have bad days all the time when you're in business. Like it's not like every day is just hockey stick level growth. Like you have days where things are breaking, where you're over budget, where you spent more on a job that than realistically you should have.
Right.
Um, and so I see, like I said, I see that a lot. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they come into like SubTo and they're like, dude, I don't even know what value I provide. But it's finding that value in your community and just continuing to give and give and give. Because I feel like you took on that role too, kind of like I did. Like I'm gonna be a go-giver first, and I'm gonna give whatever value I think I have, whether I think it's a lot or I don't. And then
Right.
people are just gonna respond to that.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think when you come in with that intention of saying, okay, the goal isn't for me to win, the goal is for us to win. And it's I would say, it's very true on the saying it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's been so true in every part of my life. And in different ways, either someone gave me an idea or someone redirected me or someone gave me that pep talk I needed. And a lot of times I think people talk about entrepreneurship being the lonely road, you're the lone wolf, people won't understand you. But I just don't feel like that's true here. I feel like if you really look for the people, you actually have an army like by your side that's wanting the same thing, maybe like in a different method, but the good people want to succeed with you. And when you come from a place of not taking but giving, you're able to build that community, you're able to go further, and you're able to enjoy it a lot more, even on the crappy days.
And I think it's also understanding too that bad minutes shouldn't make a bad day. Like you might have
Mhm.
had 10 bad minutes in traffic. That doesn't mean that your day sucked.
Right.
Like, yeah, you had 10 bad minutes in traffic. Three people almost hit you. I understand. But leave the 10 minutes over that way, right? Like hurry up, slide it to the left, and then go this way and just keep
Yeah.
going forward with it.
Yeah. I think and I think that's one thing to remember too is that sometimes sometimes I think we can get caught up in things going back to the perfection part, right? Sometimes we get stuck into things not being perfect and we automatically connect that it's going badly. But just the fact that you're doing something, just like you mentioned, like you're taking imperfect action, just the fact that you're trying something means you're actually doing something great. Because if you weren't struggling a little bit or having miniature failures along the way, you really wouldn't be going to the next level. So I think it's good to remember that's I think a really good thought like that you mentioned is just because you're having a bad moment doesn't mean you're having a bad day. And just because you're having a bad day, it doesn't mean you're doing badly in life because we're supposed to have this combination. We're supposed to have the good days and the bad days because if they were all good, we wouldn't be better. There'd be no reason to become better, right? We'd stay the same. We would maybe oversee some of our flaws or things that we need to work on or things that we can do to be more loving or harder worker. But on the days that are hard, we have to dig deeper.
Carolyn, do you want to come off mute and talk about it? Guys, anything y'all post in the comments, you don't have to come up front, but if you want to come off mute, I'll spotlight you and you can talk about it.
I'm excited about Cassandra's suggestion to try and write a resume. I have done 6 deals, but they've always been on somebody else's coattails. And yeah, and I haven't quite found my niche of like what I want to do. I know I want to do multifamily. I know that for sure. And I want to get 100 doors, but it's like, when I try and do direct to seller, direct to agent, I'm like, ugh, I don't like this. I love underwriting but how can I present myself as an underwriter or even a transaction, uh, specialist when I don't have any history of experience other than, like I say, analyzing these deals. And some of them have done well and some of them haven't done well. So,
Who do you know is buying those deals?
What's that?
Who do you know that's buying those kinds of deals that you want to underwrite and you want to be involved in?
Just yesterday, I actually went on some wholesaling, hey, Kitty, some wholesaling Facebook groups. And yeah, I magically found some people that were selling some deals, or deals, you know. Unfortunately, I looked at a lot of them and they weren't really that much better than market value. So
Not who's selling them. Do you know who's buying them? Like, do you know who your buyers are in multifamily? Because I got news for you. Like, Amy and I are working on the dispo of a 32-unit property right now.
Okay.
Shane Evans is a buyer of multifamily because I submitted the deal to Shane to look at.
Okay.
Yep.
Now Shane has an underwriter on his team, but Toyin is also Toyin submitted an LOI on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the name again? Shane
Evans and Toyin. I don't know how to pronounce Toyin's last name, so I'm not going to butcher it here.
Yeah.
No, you don't want a recording of that.
Yeah. I'm not here to hurt people's feelings, contrary to popular belief.
And to kind of add to what Adam's saying is, and I also saw in the comments, look like Todd also mentioned this as well, getting on a team is, really helpful. Anytime that I kind of do a transition over to either going from single family to multi, or if you're going from fix and flip to, long-term hold, find a team that's doing that and wants to have a team, who wants to build a team, who's excited to have you. Because a lot of people are looking for team members that can help grow their business and that want to learn and that are excited to be there. And
are you guys multifamily, or you're doing land, you said?
Yeah, so I do dispo on multifamily, and then I raise capital, but I don't have any multifamily myself. But both Adam and I know people that have a team. I feel free to connect with me after this if you like, Carolyn, because I think I know someone who's actually looking to build their team. And I can see if they're looking for, I can kind of ask you a little bit about your background because, but I would encourage you, do you network very much?
Here I am. I'm networking.
There you go. Okay.
Well, this is a good spot.
This is a good networking spot. But what about in your local community?
I'm in Canada, so I've got my buddy Gary who's in SubTo, but I actually organized a meetup and one person came, so we became really good friends. But it's kind of
yeah, I would say try to see if you can find some more local meetups. See if you can connect with people. Sometimes, meetups sometimes could be a hit or a miss, but when they're a hit, they're great. You either meet really great people you connect with, and most of my best friends are people that I went and networked with, and then we got excited and we talked about stuff that we were both interested in. So that's one thing I would encourage you to do as well, is try to see if you can find people in your local community and see if you guys align. That's definitely helped me a lot when I wanted to make a shift. And when I wanted to make a shift in development, that's what I did. As I remember talking to someone a while back that I wanted to use his land for an Airbnb. Like I was going to rent his land, put an RV on there. And it didn't work out for some reason or another, but it wasn't a bad thing. And so I remembered that, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, can I buy you a drink and ask you questions? And then as we started talking, I was like, can I pay you to follow you around? And he was like, how about I offer you a job? We need this job filled. So I had the opportunity to learn while getting paid through him. And then another friend that I knew introduced me to the guy that I'm raising money for now. And then, that's the power of networking.
I would love to have that kind of opportunity. Like, I'm in Canada and I'm investing in the States, so I'm a very rare person. Like I've networked with this group in Winnipeg. They do single family home flips. I have some random friends here and there who, maybe they have a multifamily here, or they own like a Marriott timeshare, or like there's a eclectic group of us that get together that we're just sort of on a similar wavelength, but we're doing such completely different things. It's very hard for us to connect. And I mean, you're very lucky. I assume you're in the States. Like there's a meetup in Cleveland I could go to, but that's 5 hours each way. It's at 11 a.m. So that's getting up 4 in the morning.
Mhm,
And like,
mhm.
it's, I really wish that there was a bigger community close to me that I could tap into.
I
Okay.
don't think it's necessarily finding just a local community though, too. I think it's like networking your way through SubTo, finding the community within the community, right? Like
Yeah.
you said, you wanted multifamily, right?
Yeah.
So most of the people that are in SubTo that are buying multifamily or they're underwriting multifamily or they're doing any of those things, what Zooms are they showing up on every week, right? Like they're probably on zero down Zooms, I would assume, because they're interested in buying multifamily and businesses. They might be on Zooms
Underwriting,
that
I
are
guess.
specific for networking, like
Mhm.
Jesse's Zooms on Saturdays.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
That's what that's what I did with I was trying to become a connector was I just looked for where the best connectors hung out at. So I was like, huh, Jesse Stanton, he's on the regional leaders list. He's a connector. He seems like a cool dude. Let me go show up to his Zoom. Well, Shane Evans, he seems like a cool dude. Guess what? He's co-hosting a Zoom with Jesse. It's probably a really good idea for me to show up and kill two birds with one stone, right? And that's what I did. And I made two friends on one Zoom just by talking to them and doing things like this, opening my mouth, raising my hand, asking good questions, and making comments in the sidebar.
Totally.
It makes a really good point there. And I would say another thing too that you can do in SubTo is say, hey, I'm looking to connect with more people in multifamily. Do a post in SubTo and say that you tell them that what you like to do. I like to do underwriting. I'd like to bring value. Maybe say what markets you're interested in if you have specific ones. If it's just anywhere in the United States, then you don't have to be as specific. And then you're gonna have people comment. And then it might be a great opportunity to connect, in the DMs, and then maybe you guys can schedule a call. So it can kind of go deeper and deeper.
I did make a post about financing, and that did actually turn very magically into a couple of good connections. So yeah. Some of that is like articulating where I'm really going for. Like I think the more sharp you can be about what you're aiming for, the closer you get to it. But yeah.
Who else you can connect with is Heather Dimmick. She's from Canada, lives in the States now, and her entire career was buying businesses and multifamilies.
Okay. Thank you.
Her and her daughter do it now with Lynn Bell, who's also in SubTo.
Okay. I'll look him up. Yeah. Heather, how do you spell her last name?
Dimmick, Dimmick.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I would prefer to work with somebody, like even just one other person. Like, and that's the thing. How do you find that one other person? And then I think it's good to have complementary people. In art school, there was this one guy, and I couldn't stand him. And then I was like, oh my god, I should marry this guy. He's like everything that I'm not. He's perfect. He's really into the visual and he makes beautiful stuff. And I'm like, my stuff's ugly, but it has meaning. And it's like, if the two of us got together, and that just did. I think there is some of that. I don't know. Do you guys, the two of you find that, or do you find that it's you really, are you opposites or are you harmonious, or how does that look?
I think it has to have some level of overlap, but not too much. Like Amy and I are not polar opposites, and that's why that JV works, because we're not butting heads because we're fighting because we're too different. We're also not butting heads and fighting because we're too dissimilar or too similar, right? Like everybody knows that. Like as you're coming up, you and your mom or you and your dad, like eventually as teenagers, y'all start butting heads because you're probably a carbon copy of one of them. Which one? Who knows? But whichever one is a carbon copy of you, guess what? That's probably the one you're fighting with.
Yeah, I would agree. I like to describe it as we're opposites in the right ways. And like you said, there needs to be some overlapping, because I think it helps with understanding the other person's point of view, as well as been able to kind of collaborate with each other?
Well, you'd have to have the similar ethics. Like you'd have to both want to be honest and open, and I think those are things you need to have in common. But maybe the skill set or purpose that you play would be different.
Precisely. Yeah, you need to have complementary skill sets. You need to have, but you need to have the same values because you're all on a mission together. So whatever that mission is, like it's mission first. We can be friends, but it's mission first, and then we can all go out after that and drink a beer later.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I think if you guys, and I did try to partner with someone on a deal a while back, and one thing I noticed, and the deal didn't quite work out, but one conflict we really had is going back to ethics and honesty is a big core value of mine. She liked to definitely cross the line or walk the line a little too much for me, where it made me where I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this, right? And so that's where we definitely did not align well. So we went different directions. And I think that's another reason why it's always good to have, I mean, when you find someone that says, "Oh, I'm looking for someone who's interested in multifamily," kind of doing that deep dive with them and maybe going a little bit for first it starts with DMs or then it starts with a phone call so you guys can see if you align on those ethics.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. I've had the issue too of like being given names and numbers, and then you phone the person, then they sort of assume automatically that you're going to be on their team, and then suddenly it's like, oh, how do I put this back on an interview track? And yeah, I mean, and yeah, you want to. It's almost like dating. You have to sort of like show enough interest to keep them in the game. But like, yeah, it's hard to communicate about that level of like, I am choosing somebody and I want to choose carefully. So
Well,
I think one
it
thing
just
that's
comes
helped
down to
me,
over communicating a little bit too. Like maybe not to the point that you feel like you're just throwing words out there, right? You never cast pearls before swine. So you don't want to go to places where you're not valued, but you also want to communicate enough that the value is clear.
yeah, I would agree with that is if you're able to communicate that without, feeling like you're being abrasive, it's really good to kind of set a tone of kind of what you're trying to do. One thing I do when I first start talking to people and I think, oh, like I kind of like them or we want the same thing is I say like, hey, I wanted to reach out to you because you're in, like for example, if I was in your shoes, hey, I see that you're interested in multifamily. I'm interested in multifamily too. I really like, I'm really good at underwriting. I wanted to reach out and see if we align. And when I say like we make sure we align, it's pretty known that I'm trying to make sure we want the same things.
yeah.
And I ask questions. So that's a good opportunity to ask questions, learn about them, ask their experience, what they're wanting, what direction, even asking like how fast do you want to go. And it doesn't all have to start in that one conversation, but those are some of the things it's good to know because like my level of speed, that's another thing that I learned too is someone else I tried to partner with a while back is they wanted to go so much quicker than I wanted to. And I was like wanting to hit the brakes and then they were wanting to go like, no, 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 we need to go faster. Nothing wrong with going fast, but for me, I need to have time to think about it. Just like Adam mentioned, like, hey, you tend to want to think about it. You tend to want to go over it. Uh and even though Adam is someone who jumps in, he's still thoughtful about what he's jumping into. He's not just going to jump into anything, right? So that's one reason that we connect really well on that too, is because I know he's not just jumping in any pool and just hoping it works out. He's thinking about which pool he's jumping into. And so that helps me feel safe and it gives me time to think too, right? Whereas there's some people that they don't look, they're just like, oh, that thing and jump. And I'm like, no, come back. So it's good
Yeah,
to
I
kind of
usually have
see.
like a primary, secondary, and tertiary route before I even leave. It's like, all right, cool, I can go this way, this way, this way, this way, and if I go that way, this is the consequence of that.
Exactly. And so I think it's also good to kind of see know a little enough about yourself so when you're looking for a partnership to know what works well with you, right? One thing that helped a little bit with me is I took one test called the predictive index and then the Clifton strength test. I would say helped me kind of fine tune how I work. And it really kind of made it where it was easier to, I say, disqualify who I partner with. Because if you're able to disqualify people, nothing against them, they might be a great friend. They might be someone that you can connect with in different ways, but maybe they're just not the best partner. And it's just like the same thing when you have deals. If you're looking at every single one, you get overwhelmed. Whereas if you're able to have your buy box, you can automatically disqualify them so you don't have to use as much mental energy.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually brought up a really good point too. He said to go to your regional accountability group and just go there to connect and talk to people, because chances are some of these regions are really, really big, and some of the regional accountability groups have more attendance than others. But a lot of times the people that do show up are in a lot of different things, and they can navigate you to who's doing the thing that you want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we're getting some good stuff in the chats too. So make sure to look through those because there's some good advice there.
And similar to what Amy was talking about, I had just watched a video this morning about that, about kind of like playing chess and thinking about things in end games to do more strategic, have more strategic decision making. So I dropped that YouTube link in there. It's like a 15-minute video, but if you take the time to watch it, any of you, it will definitely shift your perspective. So cool. Does that help, Dawn and Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the chat here. So yeah, somebody else should take the microphone and engage.
Johnny, I'm gonna pick on you. Come up here.
I'm underwriting. What do you want?
I want to talk about what you said up here, because you said something about you didn't know what value you had to deliver.
Yeah. So like pretty much even now I'm hesitant to like put myself out there into social media, but I'm scared to put myself out there just because I pretty much what I was doing to you. If I put myself out there, how many people are gonna start coming after me, hitting me up? So then is like
I mean, you're
real
right.
So
You're not wrong, but
we're investors. Like we want to put money into deals, but we don't want to get everybody under the sun coming after us. So my fear was if I put myself out there as Gator, no one's going to want to talk. If I put myself out there as a private money lender, everyone's going to want to talk. I had some exposure with what happened, and basically I was flooded with just nothing but deals, but taking the time with the W-2 to like try to underwrite, or even getting the ones that don't like want to say hi or get to know me. I was like, not what I wanted. I don't want to do. This is not what I want to do. So that's my fear.
But dude, we talked about this. You went on this soapbox before. Like you're gonna have to put yourself out there. You're gonna get a bunch of bad deals. That happens to everybody. You just have to be super, super quick to disqualify. So you can probably look at a slide deck usually and be like, huh, this is too busy. Nope, kick it back. Tell them to redo it and send it back to you.
Yeah, like this one I'm underwriting right now is a terrible deal. But
so then if you know it's a terrible deal, then why are you still underwriting it?
practice, repetitions.
Okay,
Study.
so that's fair, but you have to have both, right? You have to have good and bad deals to get the reps in, and you also have to do the reps. So you're gonna have to put yourself out there because that's the only way to get the opportunities to come to you, that so you can put the reps in.
Or I can complete Bo's underwriting course, be a top tier underwriter, and then do it.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is if you put yourself out there as an underwriter, maybe you can be more picky about who does and doesn't come to you.
Yeah,
You'd get less cannon fodder than you would at a PML.
that's true.
So just tell people you're an underwriter.
That's kind of what I've been doing with it. I tell a lot of people I'm an underwriter.
Yeah, then tell them you're an underwriter, that you took the course and you're practicing to pass the certification. And you never know. Like that was the same thing I was trying to tell Carolyn earlier, is like find somebody that you could potentially work underneath. Like go to Shane maybe and say, hey, do you guys need a junior underwriter to relieve Marley's son?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Johnny, you got two devices with microphones on somewhere, because that was a lot of feedback.
Yeah, Van's in front of me on her laptop. So it's echoing through.
And
Yeah.
something I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Adam said is maybe reframing that mindset is, instead of, oh, all these people are going to come out to me, they're going to ask for money, or they're going to contact me and they're going to be bad deals. I mean, you just said yourself, hey, I'm underwriting this bad deal to get the reps in, right? So sometimes the opportunity is also in, like you said, getting those reps. And when you go through understanding where the bad deals are, you're able to find the diamonds a lot quicker, right? You're able to go through and say, you're able to, just like now, you're still underwriting a deal, but you already know it's a bad deal, right? Think of when you start
It
getting
can,
good deals, right? Think when you start getting good deals and you start getting that practice in because you went through so many bad ones and you went through so many of those repetitions, that now you're that guy that can find the diamond in the rough, right? You can find those nice pieces, and that's a valuable skill set. And you don't get that skill set by just seeing all good deals, because that rarely happens, right? You get that skill set by knowing the difference between a good one and a bad one. And so maybe by putting yourself out there, you're also giving yourself the opportunity for yourself to shine, the opportunity for you to bring yourself to that next level of, hey, I now can look at these deals and I can disqualify them so much faster. And then I can now get to those good deals so much more quickly without overthinking of them, because I know what they look like. So maybe something to practice for just the reframing. And I understand social media can be a little overwhelming. I'm a little shy on there too, but uh, there's also a lot of value that can come out of it too.
Not to mention, look at how much you guys gas me up and y'all put me out there, and then you're like, you just give me these crazy ideas. You're like, you should raise your hand on family night, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should raise my hand on family night. And then next thing I know, I'm speaking in front of like 1,500 people on a Zoom, because Tace is like, hey man, what's up? What you got? And I'm not dead yet, Johnny. It's weird. I just keep showing up.
you suggested that? No, I don't think I did. Yeah.
One of y'all did. I remember, because I remember asking y'all. I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this," and you're like, "Hey, you should totally do it." I'm like, "Okay, I should totally do it then."
That sounds like a Van thing.
It probably was a Van thing.
I don't think so. No.
They're doing the tag team again. It's
What?
him, not me. No, it's her.
What? No.
But yeah, dude, you're not gonna die. I promise.
Yeah,
And
I know.
besides, if you just set your standards and your boundaries high, then you come across that way, right? Like once you start carrying yourself that way, because I give feedback to everybody, and I tell them, I'm like, look, I'm not giving you feedback to hurt your feelings. Now, some people still do get their feelings hurt. That's unavoidable. But I'm telling them, like, hey, I'm giving you free game. You're trying to network. I know you don't have bad intentions, but the way I read this, it came across as such. Maybe next time you do this with somebody else, you should reframe it and go about it differently. That's all adding value is just helping people out wherever it is.
Mhm. And there's also value in the things that aren't great, right? So I have a martial arts background, and one of the martial arts that I trained in for 7 years was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And one of the sayings we had was, you win some or you learn some. And I try to take that to heart a lot too, when maybe I have an interaction that wasn't as fruitful, or there's someone brought me a deal and I thought it was great and it turned out not to be great. And then I moved on. And, one thing is always do your due diligence, right? But I see it anytime I get kind of bummed out, like, oh, I thought this was a great deal. It turned out it's not. I wasted my time, or, I kind of get in that negative mindset. I go through that again. You win some and you learn some. So if you're learning, you're still winning, right? You're still getting yourself to be better, and you're also building more confidence.
Yeah, guys, just be on team too stupid to quit. That's what I do. Does that help a little bit, Johnny? Are you less afraid of dying now?
I'm always afraid of dying, but I feel a little bit better. I got switches to my laptop because my phone's not positioned right.
Cool. I'm pull you down for a second and let me know if you got another question.
Right.
But yeah, guys, it ultimately that is what it comes down to. It's just doing things that's still scary. I'm not comfortable at events with probably more than 250 people. I went to one a few years ago that had 450, and I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. Tomorrow I'll be in Orlando with like 3,000 people. And that realization hit me like this morning. But it's just going out there, it's putting yourself out there, because every time I do that, the little thing I hear, that you get that impulse voice in your head that's like, hey, you should send Pace that message. You should leave with gratitude. You should send somebody that podcast episode that they might find useful, or that YouTube video that you thought that really changed your perspective. It's showing up for other people and just giving like little drops of value. And that's a really good way that I've found to build relationships and foster them with people like Amy.
Yeah, I would say sometimes too is giving people the opportunity to prove you wrong. I know that sounds a little strange, but sometimes when you get into that negative headspace, you're like, oh, people are going to do this, or this isn't going to work out. Give people the opportunity to prove you wrong. Maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Hey Keith, do you mind if I pull you up so you can talk about a little bit more about what you just posted here in the chat? That's some gold right there.
That's cool.
What's going on, Keith?
How's everybody doing?
I'm glad to have you here, brother.
I'm glad to
I
be
know
here.
you'd asked me what last week when we were doing the next one. But I really like what you said here. So can you talk about it a little bit? Like if you're a PML and you're looking at a deal, what are some of the things that you're looking for?
Well, I stole this from Nathan Selleck, so this isn't. He posted this in the group last week, so it's just a quick list of questions. It's along the same lines that the safety semester and Melissa Palmer talks about. Just if they can't answer these basic questions up front, it's not even worth looking further into in doing the underwriting. So just yeah, I haven't used these yet, but I'm going to for the next opportunity to quickly vet the deal and
Well, and it goes back to like we were saying earlier, right? Being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And part of the way you get comfortable with that is clearly you looked in the group and you said, huh, Nathan posted these questions because Nathan's trying to help the community. And you're like, I'm gonna look at these and ask myself on my next deal before I submit it to a PML, right?
exactly. Yeah. Well, I
you
would
got
be the PML myself. I'm not a connector or gator, but yeah, just questions I would ask of a potential borrower. So,
yeah, and I guess, but also I was saying like whenever you do decide to invest in a deal, if you wanted to go get a different PML,
oh yeah,
you have that frame of mind, right? Like both
yeah.
as the investor and as the PML.
Well, yeah, your deal, your deck should have answers to all these questions up front when you present it, so they don't even have to ask them. So, yeah, I mean, uh, I got a PML request from Ree Campbell, and I wasn't in a position to lend on that deal, but I told her, I'm like, this is the best presentation of a deal I've seen in SubTo ever. Like everything was there up front. You really didn't even have to ask a question. So it was, yeah, if you want to be successful raising money, you got to do the work up front and present all this information.
Ria was part of what made me want to go down that journey because she had made a reel when I first slipped into the connector role about how most people's borrowing packages are shit.
Oh yeah.
Like they're just absolute garbage.
I've
And
sent her, yeah, I've sent her package to other people who I got garbage packages from, and I said, next time, try to do it like this. And yeah, just a constructive criticism. People will be much more receptive to lending to you.
I'll have to get you to send that to me so I can use that as an example with some of the people we get to because we get a lot of really crazy looking ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
put
I
your
was gonna
email
say.
in the chat here, and I have it in my email, so
Oh yeah, perfect.
Appreciate you sharing that, Keith.
no problem.
Yeah, there's Adam and I have worked on some pitch decks, and we've definitely had to dissect them quite a bit for important information that's missing. That's why there's a lot of times that when we have someone give us a deal, a lot of times we like to just go through the pitch deck and get things answered and make sure it looks solid. Because yeah, there's a lot of questions that people need to have answered to feel comfortable. And I think that's part of it is I think people don't realize when they first start asking for money, there's a level of trust that needs to be built up.
And I'm glad you brought up Ria Campbell's pitch deck because I've been telling people like you have to find the highest standard that is out there and it's available to you, and you have to hold yourself to that. And they're like, yeah, but why? Why would I do that when like the pitch deck that's about this good is will still pass most people's bars? And it's like, no, you have to find the highest standard, hold yourself to that because if you can surpass, right, if you can think of everything that the toughest and the strictest lenders are going to want, you're not going to ever have problems finding money.
Yeah, and hers is not to the level of like what a syndicator would be doing. I mean, it's so yeah, you can go further and have a truly professional pitch deck, but for for private lending, sending to people you know, hers was very well done. So I'll I found it here. I'll forward it to you.
Appreciate that. What's some of the most common things you see, Keith, when people are coming to you for deals? Like, what are they doing wrong, both in like the communication as well as what they submit,
I mean, I've had
besides
some
everything?
like I mean, I've had some that I've never even talked to the person before, and it's like, I need 250K by Friday. No address, no nothing, no information about. I mean, those you don't even look at. I mean, yeah. So
But you seem like you're still enjoying yourself, and that's what I was trying to tell Johnny is right. Like, you disqualify those people quickly, and then you just go about your life.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I
It's
mean,
not
I
like
think
you're sitting
you
here
actually tried to hook me up with somebody.
dwelling
I
on.
think it was Megan Steele, maybe. Does that sound right? I can't remember. But
I
that
had
one
a
I just
deal
didn't
for
have
Amber.
time. That one I didn't have time to. She was in a big hurry to get that one. What was that? I think it's in the chat here still.
That might be the deal with Amber when
Yeah, Amber Martin, that was it.
they were
Yeah, yeah,
closing the 88 unit. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And that's what I tell people too, right? Is like, I think if I remember correctly, I presented to you up front, like, hey, this one is kind of a shorter timeline. So I understand if this isn't your jam.
Yeah, for sure.
I never once was like, hey, Keith, you need to land on this deal. We we need the money.
Well,
Just throw
yeah,
100 grand in escrow.
yeah. There was another one last week that somebody in the group brought me, and um, he told me he was partnering with somebody, and actually I was in the car with him and saw he never actually gave me the name up front, but I got the name from his phone on a phone call because we were at a three-way, and Googled the guy, and he was a federal lawsuit for bad loans and using houses he didn't own as collateral for the loans. So like, oh yeah, that's a red flag.
Man, that's like classy, like Ponzi scheme levels. Like
Yeah.
that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was just, I didn't even do a background check. That was just a 2-second Google search of the name. So,
Yeah, see, disqualify quickly.
yeah, I mean, I've been in sales for 30 years and it's the same way in sales. If you're going to lose before you spend weeks of time on the deal. Like, just look at it, evaluate it, and get out quickly.
Yeah, that's a good way
If you
to
don't
look
have a
at
good
it.
chance of winning it. Yeah. So,
Especially if you frame it that way, you're like, huh, well, I only lost 2 seconds because I did a Google search. I know I don't have to go and waste, like you said, weeks and months, and it could be years if you had to get into a court battle to
exactly.
get money back on a deal.
Yeah. So do the things you can do quickly and vet the deal if you even want to take the next step and start running numbers.
Yeah, what other kind of safeguards do you put in place for when people are sending you deals?
Um, I mean, I do the Google search, background check. I've done a few times. Um, and then, yeah, do the underwriting on the deal. Um, I want to make sure that they're either putting some of their own funds in the deal or they have some way, like, yeah, if you're covering if they're asking you to cover purchase price and renovation, what if the deal goes over budget? Like, do they even have $5,000, $10,000 to finish the deal? And then you have no equity left if a house is half torn up and you have to foreclose on it. They've destroyed the value of the house and they have no way to finish the deal. So um, I always try to get them to put some of their own money up or at least know that they have reserves.
Some people say that they vet in the borrower. Do you have like a process that you go through to figure out like that you trust me, say as a borrower or Amy as a borrower?
I don't yet. I've only done a couple loans to people that I've known for a while. I'm going through the safety course now, and if it's a bigger loan, I would recommend, yeah, using Melissa Palmer's services, but they're not cheap. So for a $30,000, $50,000 loan, you'd be paying 5-10% of the loan, pretty much everything you would make uh, just for the background check and services and due diligence services. So for 200, 300,000 for or plus loan, then yeah, her services would be excellent.
Yeah, and I think too you can get the investor passport from her, and that's like a one-time $700. I think you're
Yeah, so
supposed to renew it like every
if
year.
somebody has that, that would go a long way of vetting them. Yeah, she's done all the
Yeah,
work
because
then.
it's instant credibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't come across anybody that's got that yet.
I think it's still a fairly new service too.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm very cautious, a very cautious lender. I wouldn't lend on a sub-2 deal. We're in second position. Um, I want to be in first position on just about any loan unless it's well, I haven't found one where I'm comfortable doing second position yet. So
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's just so much harder to get your money back at a second position.
Yeah.
And people like to make the second position loans out like they're super easy to find lenders on. But like you're saying, there's a lot of lenders that will do that. They're like, no, I will only do first position because they want that level of security, and that's in their lending box, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that'll do second position all day long, but that's just not my comfort level yet.
Yeah, and that goes back to
Um,
kind of the risk tolerance we talked about a little bit, right? When connecting, as Adam and I as connectors, we gauge that a little bit. Like for you, for example, your risk tolerance is a little bit lower. You want to be in that first position. You want to do really deep diving on who you're lending to and ask a lot of deep questions. And so, for example, Adam and I, when we look at something like that, we go, oh, well, this is only asking second position. We automatically know that disqualifies and we're not going to send it to you. Right. So, and that's, I think, a good thing to know about yourself when you're looking at those deals, and a good thing for, people like Adam and I to know too when we're trying to connect and either help you grow your business or other people that are wanting to connect with a PML, is making sure that we know everyone's risk tolerance.
Yeah, and a lot of people just say, I want to be a PML, and they haven't they haven't thought about that yet. So
Yeah.
they get
no,
every deal set to them, and then then you're spending all that time saying no,
Yeah.
no, no, and the connector's going to just stop sending them. But if they were only sending deals that fit your criteria up front, if you shared that, you
Yeah,
would it would everybody's job would be easier. So,
absolutely.
and
And
that's another thing as a connector. I think you can do is you can present to them that you have multiple deals. Like
Mhm.
when I sent you Amber's deal, I had two deals going on at the same time. And usually what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Keith, if you like single family, I do have somebody over here that they're doing the co-living strategy, or I have a multifamily deal, and I can show you whichever one or both. I'll show you both if you want, and then you can decide. And then that also gives you more feedback from your PML, so that way you know further. Like, okay, well, he said he didn't like this multifamily deal, and here's why. So I won't do that going forward. I'll strike that from the conversation.
yeah, for sure. So it's also, I mean, I've been in SubTo since around September of last year, and it took me a while to even figure out what my comfort level was like. So,
What did you do to figure out where you were? Right? Is there a
um,
certain process that you went through?
just education, going through Pace's older trainings on lending. There's a good series. I think there's 3 videos from about a year and a half ago on that, and then the safety semester stuff is taking that and expanding upon that into a whole semester. So
That's great feedback. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
important to know anytime, whichever direction you go, either as an investor or private money lender, is knowing where is my risk tolerance. And that way you don't start a deal uncomfortable. I mean, you're going to be a little uncomfortable, but not in terms of fight or flight or feeling that you're going to lose everything, right? You have this thing of maybe natural fear because you're doing something new or you're working with a new person, but you feel confident from the perspective of your risk mitigation, right?
yeah, and I was actually at a credit building workshop yesterday all day, and the presenter kept saying over and over again is why would a bank ever lend to somebody that needs the money? So it's um and it's the same way with a PML. You want to, if somebody is in the position where they are desperate and they need the money, it's not an attractive person to be lending to. So you want to make those connections before you need the money, and have the resources and people and will lend to you, yeah, when you need it. But
Mhm.
um,
Would you
But
say
wait,
that's
the
one?
desperate person trying to become resourceful? You mean to tell me that it's only good in baseball movies?
so yeah, so getting started in real estate with no skill, no money down, yeah, it sounds great, but it's not as easy as people
And it
make
go,
it out to be. Yeah.
yeah, and it kind of goes back to what Adam was emphasizing is getting on a team with people that have that experience so you can learn along with them, right?
Right. If you have
And
no money and no experience, then partner with somebody that does, and they have properties that can be used as collateral, or they have reserves that could pay the PML back if something goes wrong. So
exactly, and it keeps everyone safer, including the newbie, right? The person's able to learn from people and they're safer too as a new investor. And then it makes it where everybody's able to build those relationships and no one, well, maybe not no one, but you're less likely to have that bad experience either from a PML perspective or a new investor in perspective.
Yeah, and the new investor gets to keep their reputation intact, right? Because what happens if you're the newbie, you go out there and you make a really good looking pitch deck, you borrow that money. Well, poof, money's gone. Then what?
Yep. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
cool.
sometimes people get so excited about doing their first deal and wanting to do it alone, saying like, "Oh, I did this myself," that sometimes that risk is forgotten as well as the opportunity to learn from people that know more than you and accepting that a piece of the pie is better than no pie, right?
yeah, that's one of my biggest challenges. Just joining SubTo is like I'm in Chicago. I've worked with Nita's team a little bit on door knocking, pre foreclosures,
Mhm.
and just giving up that 80% of the deal to work with her team. It's like it's a hard pill to swallow at first, but it's like, well, I'm learning so much just by seeing what she does and having her help with the deal that, yeah, yeah, it's worth giving up 80-90% of the deal on a couple to get that knowledge.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And likewise, guys, it goes back to what Amy and I were talking about in the beginning of this, right? Like that's why JV partnerships can be so beneficial if you have properly lined up skill sets, attitudes, temperaments, communication styles. Because I might do my own due diligence on the deal, but Amy's also going to help me do the same due diligence. We're going to look at it together. We're going to catch different things. Like
Mhm.
we did that one borrower package together, Amy, and we had more questions than we had answers in what, 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's exactly it.
It didn't take long.
It didn't. And it helped us kind of look at it and go, I think we need to set up a meeting and go back to this person and ask these questions before we can even get these questions answered and see if they can answer these questions before we continue. I mean, even we're disqualifying deals, right? We disqualify deals before presenting them anywhere all the time where, hey, is this a viable deal? Or hey, does this person know what they're talking about? And that's one of our processes is we look at their pitch deck and we go, how many questions do we have and how can they answer them? And are they
Yeah,
happy
and
to
are
answer
they
them?
going to answer them in a timely manner? That's
Yeah,
the other thing.
absolutely.
Cool. Thanks for coming up here and jamming with us, Keith.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Who else wants
Appreciate
to
the
get
value.
uncomfortable and get pulled up here? We'll have to start picking on people.
Yeah,
Should we pick on somebody, Amy?
I think so. Let's see here. Seeing Cassandra make a lot of comments in the chat. Cassandra, you want to jump up here with us?
Cassandra's always down to hang out. Look at her.
How we
Cassandra.
doing?
Great. Are you jogging?
I am not doing that. I am
Okay.
walking.
With an iced coffee and nonetheless.
Me
I
and my
was
puppies are out getting some exercise.
That's great. I was at first like, how are you able to type and run at the same time? That's a skill that
I was sitting at the
typing,
coffee
running, and
shack waiting
coffee?
for
That's
this
a lot.
business. Oh man, yeah. Happy Sunday, guys. I'm glad I was able to jump in. I know it's a little late, so I kind of missed the front end. I was actually doing some uncomfortable conversations with a potential partner that I'm working on. And you know, you mentioned something really, really interesting, Ashley, about or maybe it was Carolyn talking about the pace in which you want to do that, right? So it's to bring on 4 properties a month, but they have no idea what it means to bring on a co-living property. It's like, yo, maybe not that many. Like that's cool and all, like that's cool, but we need that, and we want to market nationwide. No, we need to bring that back a little bit, because I know what it means to bring on a co-living property, and that shit ain't fast. So until you have the team in place, and you have all of the operations in place. So heard that, but I'm trying my damnedest not to mess up my circle. I've talked to a lot of people that are in this Zoom, and I mean, I don't think we've spent any particular time together, so nice to see you. But I have like a little connector circle that I do, where it's like I'm trying to find my volume borrowers that I've vetted and I love to work with, and then I'm really looking for that longer term money, private money partners, private money lenders, and I add value through also providing life insurance services to my clients as well. So I like that, because then my lenders are better leveraged when they are lending through their life insurance policy. And that's what I've really been focused on for the last 6 months. And hey, sorry, my dog almost like knocked me down a hill. But I also, of course, still want to build my own portfolio of rent by the room model, because it's not only does it cash flow great, but it really provides a service that a lot of our communities need. So I've been kind of finding those people to put into place to build that out and take some of those things off of my plate, as far as the conveyor belt goes, from the finding the deals, underwriting the deals, and I'm kind of in the money circle. So I'm trying to stay in that loop and not get sucked into the other parts. It's like, I know I could do it, but I shouldn't. I shouldn't be doing it. So continuing to stand strong your conviction.
Yeah, so you have your connector circle, which I'm guessing is probably like people you have JVs with that, like we were saying earlier, complementary to you, right? Like they're not all exactly like Cassandra. Like you and I are a lot alike.
Right. Just got a better beard.
Yeah, I know you gotta work on yours a little bit.
You think so? All right, I will.
What all this food I'm working on my boobs.
What was the last part? I missed it. I don't know if I'm cutting out or not.
What?
I don't know.
You might be. I also saw we have Jen in here, and it says in her title she does co-living too.
Yep.
Jen? Oh, my girl Jen?
Yeah, we got to pick on her a little bit. She's been quiet.
Yeah, Jen, I know that Wisconsin in you is not keeping you that quiet. She must be doing something else.
Probably. She might have her hands full.
So it sounds like, Cassandra, that you have co-living houses and you're trying to build a team right now. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I mean, I have a co-living house and I'd like to scale that model. I have a very small market though. I'm in Alaska, so there's a lot of need here, but that'll tap out quickly. So really building out those A teams in different markets. What that entails is obviously going to be your maintenance crew, and your operators. And for transitional living, it's a whole different ball game from like, you know, like your pad splits. The true goal that I'm looking for my operators for are the people that believe in not only providing housing services to people needing transitional living for one reason or another, but believe in walking alongside those residents. So I'm super blessed to meet some operators here when they found out that I had this 12-bedroom house, who provide counseling and life skill services to their tenants, if you will, which I find extremely important because there's a large population of people out there that messed up, man. That's plain and simple. They messed up in their lives and now they're trying to do something different. And it can be hard. And if you're not built like people like us, right, who have that grit and that ability to keep moving every time somebody kicks you right in the face, they often just fall back to their old ways.
Yeah.
You know, so if we could give them that strong hand and that push and that stability and that push to be like, listen, you can be a productive member of society. You can be self-sufficient. I mean, imagine like how our societies can really start shifting. Although, I don't know, prison lobbyists might start taking us out.
So I started off in real estate with co-living too. So I everything you're saying, I resonate with. So on finding your operators, what method have you used to kind of disqualify whether or not they're a good fit for you and your team?
This is something I'm learning right now. And like I said, I've looked around for people in my market, right? Because we wanted to master lease our 12-bedroom. Right now, it's just a retail rent by the room model.
Yeah.
Oh, my ass is too fat to be walking up this hill. I'm sorry. Well, I'm heavy breathing. But what I learned when they found me was really how they kind of describe what their passion is and what they're doing. And if they don't say without me prompting them that they will kick a toxic person out of a house because they don't need their paycheck, then they're not probably the right person for me. Because you see it all too often. You get into these sober living houses and whatnot, or maybe halfway, whatever it is, right? I mean, we could go through 12 different scenarios of demographics that these places could house. And if they're too lazy to deal with turnover and keep somebody in the house that is bringing down the entire morale and intention of the home, they're not the right ones. They're not the right ones at all. So that's one thing I'm going to be looking for when I'm vetting operators, like in different markets, because I have not expanded to different markets yet. It's really just in Alaska at this point.
It's all 6 people in the state.
Shut your mouth. Yeah, all 6 people. Me, my 2 dogs, and there's like 3 other randos somewhere.
And a bear. It's just Cassandra up there and a dancing bear.
A dancing bear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them in videos, not in real life.
Alaska's just a psyop, everybody. It's just Cassandra. No one else is in Alaska.
Man, I would be one hell of a land baron if I was the only one.
A lot of oil money.
Did that answer your question, Ashley? I'm not sure if I was answering what you asked me, but
Oh, it's Amy, but yes, it did. I was, that's one thing we talked about.
Oh my gosh, Amy, I'm sorry.
You're okay. It's close enough. I've been called Ashley. I've been called Amanda. I've been called Mary. I'm like,
I usually get called asshole.
Yeah, I've been called all kinds of things too, but my apologies. Normally I'm more attentive to the screen.
Totally okay. But yeah, no, that's one thing we were talking about a little bit is partnerships and how we disqualify different people. And so I was curious, like, what we're using to disqualify people, because I always think that's the first step. You disqualify people first before you start qualifying them, right?
Absolutely. Yep. One thing though, too, I mean, in order to properly disqualify folks, you really have to spend some time with yourself and know what you want. You have to know yourself in order to properly disqualify, because like I could be an amazing partner for you, but I could be a terrible partner for Jen. You know,
Oh,
and that could be a
100%.
variety of things, like what our communication style is, how we like to operate. So part of disqualifying other people is really getting to know yourself super well, what your expectations are, and then be willing to have those conversations and fill the gap before you get into business with someone.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, that was something we talked about a little bit too, is you need to know a little bit about how you work and how you navigate, and it helps you understand what type of person you want to work with and who you don't want to work with, right?
Right. Absolutely.
It's just
Yeah. So
like
I guess,
dating.
yeah, right. That's why I'm single. Um,
Hey, me too.
well, we ain't gonna talk about that, Adam. We know all the reasons. I'm just kidding. Um, but at
Where we
any rate,
start.
right? At any rate, I think the most uncomfortable thing that I'm working on right now is, you know, somebody who had approached me and was like, "Hey, listen, like I want to do this," and they have resources that I don't have, right? So that's great. So that's somebody I have been looking for, but I wasn't quite ready for them yet. Um, so figuring out if now is the time to move forward with it, but also the most uncomfortable thing for me is really being able to find those people virtually, because you know flying in that Alaska ain't easy. So finding those quality operators, and you know you hear all the horror stories about contractors and whatnot. So obviously finding like trusted boots on the ground to be able to help you do project management and things like that, making sure things are running smoothly when you can't see, feel, taste, or touch it. I think that's like the most uncomfortable piece for me, and probably why I haven't expanded into other markets as far as my buy and hold portfolio. You know, that's mainly been like a wholesale scenario for me.
Do you
So
have
that's
eyes
how
and
I'm
ears
getting
in the
uncomfortable.
TC community?
Say again?
Do you have like some kind of eyes and ears inside the TC community?
Yeah, I mean, I know plenty of TCs, and I've reached out to them on, you know, different reasons. So I guess that's a great resource to kind of tap into. You're right.
Especially since they're starting to train up more people inside the TC community to be like operators, boots on the ground, property management, like
Right.
into the different flavors of integrators that TCs tend to present themselves as.
Right. Heard. Yeah, for sure. And it's just a matter of like finding the ones who are familiar in the markets that we're targeting.
You know, Cass, like we said in previous weeks, have you met Emma?
Well, I have met Emma. Emma and I have had several long, or not several. We had a great conversation not too long ago, also while I was hiking the dogs. And I would love to use her for a transaction coordinator for any lending deals that I connect on. So I think that's super important, you guys. Like TCs are just like CPAs and just like lawyers. Like if they're worth their salt, like they should be specializing. I don't think I would use a TC who's like super dope at, you know, the Morby method or whatever, and then bring them in on like on a more difficult lending deal, because there's just different things to look at. Like I used a TC on a lending connecting deal that had a great reputation. They've done a ton of transactions, and they completely foobarred my lending deal, like to where I was the one running it. I was like, what in the hell are we doing? This is not correct. XYZ, like, where's your checklist here? So it just kind of proved my point, you know. Look for the people
But have you
specialized in
thought
what you're
about
doing.
using Emma to like help you find another operator from inside the TC community?
No, I
That's
haven't.
what that's what I was thinking of, is like directly going to somebody that's already in there in that community, because you don't want to be a TC, so you don't need to be in there. But
Right.
if it's the same thing I would ask you for if you were in a circle that I wasn't, I'd be like, hey Cass, do you mind like poking your head into this Facebook group or this water cooler, so to speak, where people hang out at? Like, do you mind going poking in there and seeing if you can find somebody that fits this description?
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Hey, bro, would you do me a favor and send me a text so I don't have to take the note?
What, to do that?
Sorry. I'll owe you a coffee if you do that for me.
What, to text you that?
Yeah, so that I don't forget in this next 3 miles when I get back to my car. I guess I could stop what I'm doing and take a note and then never look at it again.
So,
You guys,
okay,
you guys
you
have
need me to
you
do
guys
it.
have all those notes in your phone where you don't ever look at them again.
I've definitely had those.
Yeah, you forget where that you wrote them down. You're like, oh yeah, I did it digitally.
Physical notes help me a lot more. And this is,
Yeah.
What Adam mentioned is the kind of the power of networking, right? Like maybe you have someone in the TC world that may not be the best fit for that particular job, but they may know someone that is, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
Well, there
solid.
you go. I sent you a text, so you have it.
You the man. You'll have to send me your address like a DoorDash you a treat.
That would be epic.
Right?
You're just sitting at home one day and you hear like knock, knock, knock. Like, why are the dogs going nuts? Oh shit! Somebody's outside with Starbucks.
Right? I mean, I
Johnny's
kind of just forced you
suggesting
to be my
dog treats.
secretary. Yeah, dog treats for sure.
That
Oh,
is
yeah.
true too. Not like little Nala's not spoiled already.
Right.
She's sleeping right now, little turd.
Come on, baby. Let's go. Well, thank you guys for chatting with me today. I don't want to take up any more airtime, especially because I'm huffing and puffing and all.
Well, I think we're about to wrap it up here. I was gonna pick on Jen real quick and see if she's been up to anything.
No,
But she must be busy because she didn't come off camera. Or, I mean, off of mute.
Oh, yep. Yeah, she hasn't
Well,
responded, so I'm going to assume she's multitasking.
Yeah, she said sorry. It's all good, Jen. Like I said, we do this every week. We show up with somebody different. Next week, Judah DeVilbus is gonna come on, and we're gonna do the same thing. Just everybody's gonna come hang out. We'll ask questions. So I guess with that though, since most of the people had to run, guys, do me a favor if what Amy and I have done today has brought you value, bring somebody else to the next one and just keep showing up so we can keep answering all these questions and helping people inside the community. So with that being said, Adam, Amy, Cass, Jen, we're all out. See y'all next
You
time.
guys.
Later.